Welcome to the Intuitive Eating Mama podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer D'Amato. I am an intuitive eating counselor and I'm also a mom to four. This podcast is not just for mamas, it's for all women who are ready to ditch diets, ditch the scale and food guilt forever, and instead invite peace with food, increase their body trust, and confidence in all of her choices. I believe this show is going to shed some light on sneaky ways diet culture has infiltrated your thoughts, your family, and your well-being. No matter the episode, I want you to walk away feeling informed, inspired, and encouraged. So whether you're taking a walk, washing the dishes, or carting kids around, let's dive into the latest episode on the Intuitive Eating Mama podcast. Hey ladies, so I had told you when season 4 started that I would start having guests again, and I have quite the lineup coming. This is our first guest of season 4. Emiko Jaffe is a weight-neutral certified personal trainer. Through her private coaching and her self-paced program, which is Ease into Movement and Strength at Home, she helps people who are new or are returning to exercise get fit without the diet culture bullcrap. She uses a different word there, but I know there's mamas listening, so you can use your imagination. I have all of her links in the show notes to her website, her program, her Instagram. Give her a follow. This episode was so good. It's always amazing. Like, we went places we weren't even expecting. And as someone, myself personally, who struggled with my toxic relationship with movement, it's like I wish Emiko had been like in my field of vision at all while I was healing, because it's exactly what I needed. So I hope you enjoy this episode and my interview with Emiko. All right, Emiko, I'm so glad you're here on the podcast today. Welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here. Love it.
Yes. Oh, I love it. Would you just, for our listeners, just take some time, introduce yourself, tell us about you, what you do, and all the good things.
Sure. So my name is Emiko Jaffe. I'm a weight neutral non-diet fitness trainer. And what that really means is I do not help people looking to do intentional weight loss. So I help people who actually want to get fit for tasks they perform on a daily basis. And so what that looks like is I help people get stronger. I help them get more energy for their hobbies, for work, whatever, relationships. Yeah, and we just leave out the diet culture piece.
Ooh, I am a huge fan of leaving out the diet culture piece. And I love this. You said something already that I find so interesting about being task focused, even like that, so that women, and do you work with women and men? Maybe I should clarify that first.
The vast majority of the people I work with are women. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I'm thinking about all the tasks I do during a given day, even like, could you talk a little bit more about that approach to fitness?
Yeah. Yeah. So, when we're talking about fitness, when people come to me and they say, "Hey, I want to get fit," sometimes I hear something like, "I want to get in shape." Okay, well, what does get in shape mean? Right? That can mean lots of different things to lots of different people. So then we have to start talking about. So when I do an intake, I ask all kinds of questions. What's your day like? What's your job like? Do you volunteer? Are you a caretaker? All these questions, because that kind of informs the kinds of activities and tasks that they're performing throughout the day. And then they tell me, "Oh, I want to have more energy," or, I want to go on hikes, for example. Hiking is a big one. I love hiking. So a lot of people come to me, they have a challenging hike they want to do, or they want to do it and talk to their friends and not be like super winded and uncomfortable when they're doing the hike. Effort, but not uncomfortable, right?
Mhm.
So we start to get to work on what's their why. Like, that to me is the most important thing. Before we get to programming, before we get to, actual fitness goals, it's like, well, what's your why? Why do you want to do this? And it always needs to be something that's intrinsic to them, nothing external, So if there's any hint of, well, I feel like I should, or, like a family member pressured me or a doctor pressured me, because of, I'm using air quotes, health concerns or anything
Mm-hmm.
like that. Well, that wouldn't be motivating for me. And so I can't imagine how motivating it would be for somebody else to feel pressured or bullied into exercising. And so I really try to get them to say, well, what is it that they want to feel? Because at the end of the day, I think most of us get into anything because we want to feel better. We want to feel good. And if we're getting ourselves into an exercise program where it doesn't feel good, I really believe that the process dictates the outcome. So if the process is yucky and it doesn't feel good and you feel coerced and you're rolling your eyes every time you come to a training session, the outcome is probably not going to be much better. Because, okay, how are you going to maintain that? Even if you achieve whatever goal you're going to achieve, how now are you going to maintain that? Is that reasonable for you? Is it sustainable? Are you willing and able to do it? Those are the 4 questions I like to ask.
Oh my
And
gosh, I love that. I love that so much.
yeah.
I talk a lot about joyful movement. And I don't know, the word joyful could be a stretch, but enjoyable, something that you
Mm.
actually enjoy. Like you already said hiking, and I'm like, let's do it. Like, let's go. Let's go on a hike. I want to do this. I don't do it very often. I live in a freaking hot climate, so I just don't want to be outside unless the nice weather's here, which is cooler, in Arizona. But I love hiking and I find it enjoyable. And that's such a key element. I personally hated any type of exercise, any type of movement growing up. Like PE class was a complete dread for me. My family still laughs at me. I signed up for field hockey freshman year of high school. This is many, many moons ago. And I don't even know if people play field hockey everywhere. It was a women's sport. I was like, I'm going to give sports a try. My whole family's like, what are you doing? Like, I hate doing any of those things. And I gave it a try and it reconfirmed it. And then I really it just solidified this relationship I had for a long time with moving my body at all because I didn't enjoy it. And I thought, oh man, I thought that if you move your body, you'll have these changes, which resulted, of course, as a 17-year-old, I started thinking, well, if I move more, I'll lose weight. Like that started really young for me. The whole focus, first of all, not enjoyable. And I have to lose weight. Like that should be part of it. How do you even address that? Like someone comes to you and that's something that's still in the back of their mind. Like, how is that approached within the context of the work you do?
Yeah, first I want to really acknowledge that, it's not in your head that you come to something like fitness and go, "Oh, I should want this." Like that little, even if it's not what you want, you might just want more energy. You might just want to feel good. But the culture around us, we're all swimming in it, and as fitness professionals too, okay? Like we're all swimming in it. The idea is that, yeah, but whatever it is, also give them a side of weight loss. Whatever it is, also sneak that into the programming. Right. I just saw something on my Instagram that was really upsetting. And that was a fitness professional, and it's a dude, it's a fitness professional. And, some of their stuff is really good and I followed it. But today, something he wrote was just smacked of eugenics, right? Which was, well, it's the reason weight is included in fitness is because it speaks to biology and attractiveness and all this. And I'm like, ew,
Ooh, oh, that's gross. Ooh, I just had a
so
physical
gross.
reaction.
I know. I was really twitchy when I read that. And I'm like going, so you could be, this is why I find it so tricky navigating like fitness spaces, because you'll be like, okay, fitness fact. What's this? Right. Like it just all of a sudden creeps up on you, like, and just mentions it casually in a conversation where you could have been on board and stuff was making sense. And then all of a sudden they come up with this stuff, literally eugenics, right? What are we saying? We're policing bodies. We're saying these bodies are worthy. These bodies are not. I mean, that's how genocides happen, right? Like this is dangerous, dangerous rhetoric.
Yes. And no
How many
wonder people are struggling to want to move when you feel so shamed before you've even done it.
Exactly. And
Oh,
so it becomes fraught. It's not just, hey, I just want to move better. Hey, I just want to have less aches and pains. It's become, do you deserve to live or not? I mean, that's like, it
mm.
sounds hyperbolic, but that's what it comes down to. And so if people are afraid to approach people in mainstream fitness, understandable, because there are people like that who are saying they're about performance and they want to help you, improve your fitness, but you're going to get that behind it. If that's how he's thinking, that's going to show up. That's going to show up in how he, offers his services. And I think it's very dangerous. I don't even just think it's mean. It's not just mean, it's dangerous.
And that's a word I use often, dangerous. Because really, even if he never sees the end result of his words and his thoughts, it's having this ripple effect. It's sitting with individuals hearing these messages. And we know, I mean, I don't usually name names on here. So I like that we're not doing that, because we
That's
know
right.
it's across the board,
That's
right? We
right.
know it's happening everywhere. We know that this is so much bigger than one account. I mean, if one person
Yeah.
were saying it, we'd probably go, okay, buddy, have another one. But that's not what we're dealing with here. We have, I mean, okay, I was deeply, deeply entrenched in the no excuses, no days off, never miss a Monday. I mean, I was so entrenched in those thoughts. Do you ever have women coming even from the other side of that equation, right? Because I've been on both sides. I hate movement. And then I became very obsessed, orthorexic, like just could not stop working out. It was 6 days a week, 3 hours a day. It was punishment, is really what it was. Talk about harmful. Do you have
Yeah.
that side that you ever address within the context of your work?
Like bringing people on who are just were obsessed with their training and exercise.
Yeah.
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 Well, I mean, I could say that I had a phase of that in my own life, right?
Mm.
So, I want to say though, just to kind of give an overview of like my history with exercise, my relationship with exercise has been overall really good, right? Like I started feeling good in my body as a child, dancing, playing. I was always moving around, running around on the monkey bars at recess. My association with movement is fun, is enjoyment. It's often, I'll say it's like movement for me, whatever it is like the eye of the hurricane. Sometimes when life is swirling around, being the maelstrom, it's like, I know I can step into movement. I can go on a hike. I can take a walk. I can lift some weights. And even if it's crazy, crazy going on around me, I know for that moment, I'm going to be okay. So, and I've had moments where I'm just minding my own business and like lifey things happen. I went through a period where I was, kind of struggling with who am I? Why am I here? Identity crisis stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
and it was a moment where all of a sudden I was doing other things. I wasn't eating as much because when I'm very stressed and anxious, I don't eat a lot. I lost a lot of weight. And all of a sudden people were like, you look great. What are you doing? And I'm like, well, I'm going through an identity crisis. And it was a time when I'm now separated from my husband for a long time. I was struggling with that. There was a lot going on, but all people thought to think was, you look great. What's your secret? And this is why I always say, by the way, aside, let's not comment on people's bodies.
Yeah, let's put that out there. I
And we stop.
100% agree. Could we? Yes, let's sign a
Yes.
petition, get it started, and all agree. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you very much. And so that put me in this place of, oh, well, there must have been something wrong with the way I looked before. And let me just say, I always lived in a straight sized body. So I was in a straight sized body that just got leaner. And this is what garnered all this hubbub. Unsolicited, by the way, just people, strangers coming up to me. And it was the worst thing that ever happened to me, because then it made me feel at this time when I'm dealing with identity stuff, it's like, well, maybe I need to hold on to this. Maybe this is the right way to be. And then that's when things got a little disordered. And then I started really thinking about workouts as like, well, how do I burn up the most amount of calories in the least amount of time? How do I, police my own body, basically? How do I control my body instead of being in it? And so, so it kind of dovetails, like, so there were times I really, really enjoyed my training and exercise. And then there were times I was just like, oh, I dread it, right? Because of that motivation. which actually comes back nicely to the why. Why am I doing this? What's the purpose of training? What's the purpose of fitness? And depending on when you talk to me, could have been one or the other. And so I think it's really, really important that we, again, address the why. And for those people coming out of this, well, exercise was the way I managed my body, was the way I policed my body. We need to first heal that. We first need to get out of that thinking and saying, you know what, that's not mine. I'm going to put that back on the culture. I'm going to put that back on whoever made me feel that way. That's not mine to hold anymore. So now, once I get rid of that, and here's the thing, sometimes there's a little vacuum created if we don't know then what we want. So we go from, let me get rid of this way of thinking about it. And I want to say too, I think there is a grieving period that happens when you let go, right?
Yes.
Of this idea that, okay, well, I'm not going to be that, and I'm not going to do this for that reason anymore. What am I going to lose? Because you will lose something. You will disappoint people. And I mean, let's be honest, some of these people, it's fine. Like, go ahead, disappoint them. But in our heads, we think that's not okay. And then, this is a whole nother conversation, but then you layer on, especially if you're, born female in this culture, right? All the stuff that we're supposed to make people prioritize other people's comfort over our feelings of safety and meeting our own needs, right? So we don't like to disappoint people. And especially in a culture that objectifies women so much in their bodies. Well, the minute we start going, well, I'm not going to do that anymore, we're disappointing people.
We're bucking the system. I mean, we're
Yeah.
completely bucking the system. And it is not, well, it's so interesting to me because it's not accepted, except I think you're part of the same like fun circle of people where it's like, that's the life we live now. Sometimes I have to remind myself, and social media is really good at reminding me hard and fast, that there is that whole other world still existing out there. It's what we are here to stand up against, but we're
Yeah.
also doing the work in a completely different space. And man, what a contrast, even in how it feels to be in both those spaces. Our stories are so similar in that workout, kind of what happened for your story and where unfortunately my story led. But we live in this space now where it's like, I could never go back. I could never go back to that place. And I just want to take everyone with me. Like, this is so inclusive and welcoming and inviting and open and peaceful compared to the diet culture mentality that's in food, that's in body, that's in workout, that's in exercise, all of that. It is isolating. It's full of shame and you feel degraded. You feel worthless. You feel it's never enough. I mean, I had the experience in that extreme weight loss where I hit this point that I thought, this is where I need to be. And it was never enough because it was never about the weight. And that's the hard, like I had to grieve. You really hit the nail on the head with that. And it's something I talk about with clients and something I invite to people, like, it's okay to grieve. It's okay. Even if some of the things you're like, okay, bye-bye. But man, I think grief is part of that process. And I don't think we can get through the rest of what we need to process sometimes without allowing space for the grief.
That's right. I sometimes use the analogy too. It's kind of like, if you've been, can I swear on this podcast a little bit?
We generally keep the F word out, but if it
Okay.
comes out, I'll make sure to clear it up.
Got it. Okay. So, I'll say it this way. So, sometimes we're in a poopy relationship, right? With a friend or a romantic partner or whatever, and we know it's time to go. Even when you break up with that friend or that partner that's no longer a good fit for you, there's a feeling of like, oh, that was the right thing to do. And also grief. Like, we still grieve bad relationships, right? We still grieve what we lose from it because we wouldn't have stayed in it if we weren't getting something from it. It just gets to the point where that something is no longer worth it. The return on investment is so low or non-existent that we're just putting, our good energy after bad into that relationship. And I think the same thing can be said with, an unhealthy relationship to exercise, an unhealthy relationship to food and eating, we have to at some point go, I was getting something out of it, but it's no longer giving me what I need. It's no longer benefiting me. The cost benefit analysis is that less benefit, more cost, right?
Yeah. I mean, if it's causing more harm than it is good,
Yep.
right? I mean, there can be some good things. I learned I like to lift weights. I tried a lot of different things out there. I ran a half marathon. When I say ran, I mean kind of ran, jogged, and walked and tried just across the dang finish line of a half marathon because I was like, well, running's the thing. I was surrounded by people who were like, you need to run, you need to run. And if you run, you'll lose weight and need to run. I hated running. One of the things that came out of a really toxic time was I like lifting weights. I'm like, this feels really good. Now I don't need to lift them. I was lifting them 6 days a week. I don't do that anymore. But when I do lift weights, like I just feel so strong and empowered. And I feel like Jen, I would say like just Jen, like that's me. And I wouldn't have discovered that part. So there's good things that can come, but I don't think we're ever taught you might need to grieve your own thoughts you had, things, expectations, because, we put grief so often external, right? We're grieving something outside, but there's some grieving I had to do with what I believed. I was letting go of all of these thoughts I had about myself, which unfortunately, similar to your story, were confirmed unintentionally. I will say it wasn't, I don't think if people knew what was really going on, they would have said all the things they said, gave me the praise, all the acknowledgement. But man, it made it a lot harder to work through because I mistakenly started putting my value in the size of my body and not who I was. I mean, I think I'm pretty dang amazing and yet got so caught up in see, they'll like me better when I'm more valued if I'm in a smaller body. And I've been in a straight size most of my life. Right now, I would say I'm the heaviest and happiest I've ever been. I'm still strong. I still have energy. I can still do all the things that are good for me, that it really isn't about the body. And that it's
Right.
such a process to work through and not one that happens quickly. Not I mean, I think we want it. I talk to so many women, they're like, I just want to get there. And I'm like, man, if I had the magic way to get you from feeling all those terrible things to feeling better, and it could happen, super fast, I'd be a billionaire. But actually, what you learn in the process about yourself, about movement, about bodies, yours and others, like there's so much you gain from that process. Did you find that to be true for you, that all of that learning that took place within your healing story has benefited you just in just a bigger sense, like again, even with your business, what you do now?
Oh my gosh. Well, yes. And I would just want to add to that I think it's an ongoing process. We're always, as long as we're in this culture. And I feel like, Kelly Deals, who's a mentor of mine, she would say, we're culture making. So and I think it's important too that we don't not you and me, but like that we're as a collective, we're not gaslighting ourselves into thinking that the society just doesn't care. Like just love yourself and society will fall in line. They might or they might not. The fact of the matter is the bigger work at hand is yes, we have to self-regulate ourselves. We have to come to a place where we are not internalizing all this messaging that our bodies have to be a certain way, right? But then we also have to work on the culture at large, which is what you are doing with your podcast, right?
Mhm.
Which is what I'm doing when I program a program for somebody that doesn't include any diet culture in it. That's our spot on the wall that we're trying to dismantle. Like, listen, this isn't okay with us. So here's our counter messaging about it. And we hope you join us. Like, we hope you join the chorus, right? And
I
you
love
also
that
pick
so much.
yeah, and then they can also pick, let me get on the wall with you. So if we have all these people on the wall chipping away at these oppressive ideas, then it can be less about the next generations coming up, can worry less about what does the culture think of me, because the culture is changing. So I
Yeah.
think it's so powerful when we think about it that way, that it's not just, oh, I'm just working on myself. That is a big part of it. but we work on ourselves. Why? So that when we go out into the world, we're offering something different. We're not
Yes.
reflecting back that toxic messaging that our bodies need to be a certain way in order to be to take up space in the world.
Oh my goodness. Yes, yes, yes. I have a mission, and for me it is changing generations to come. But you have to do the work first.
Yeah.
I really believe that I don't think everyone's called to, have a podcast or go on social media and call out the bull malarkey crap that's out there. I will surely take that on. I have no problem. I always tell my clients, they're like, I couldn't say those things. If you don't feel called to say those things, but you're doing the work for yourself,
Yep.
that these things aren't getting passed on. I mean, Emiko, what you have is women who are moving their body for enjoyment, to feel fit, to be able to do the things they want to do in life without focusing on their weight. They get to pass that on to whoever it is they have influence over. And it can be
Yeah.
sometimes just the sweet little people in our home. It can be those coworkers in the lunchroom, which I hear a lot. The lunchroom is like one of the worst places for this kind of talk, but they get to be that influence. They don't take with them anymore these messages that they carried for so long. And in fact, they get to change the narrative and be part of that. I mean, that's so empowering. I love that. Like
Absolutely.
I'm picturing women working out, getting these workouts from you, having that. And it's like, I'm not just learning, maybe stages of doing a plank or learning how to do a squat or, whatever stretches you have as part of their program, but they carry along with that a complete change in culture. Not that they're carrying that on them, but it's part of the mission, your heart, and what you are doing out in the world, which I love, I love, I love, I love so much. I think we can change so many things about how we view moving our body, exercise, fitness. There's actually a lot of talk about that. So I kind of want to talk about that for a moment. I don't use the word exercise very often because a lot of women I talk to, it's like a 4-letter word,
Mm.
like the word exercise or even working out. So in intuitive eating, we talk about moving our body. So I'm curious, like, do you find there's some strong emotions, thoughts attached to even using those words? How do you address any of that stuff that might come up? Or how do you talk about movement when it comes to working with the women specifically? Do you have a different language you use, or how does that come up? Or maybe it doesn't.
Yeah. So what I like to do, and this is because it speaks to my personal interest, is I like to use the word training as opposed to workouts or I mean, I'll use the word workouts every once in a while, like, okay, here's your workout, but really we're training. It's a training session. And the reason I use that language is because, oh, and I also love movement because I think people should start with movement, like go for a walk, dance it out in your house. And I listened to one of your podcasts where you're like, you like to dance. And I'm
I
like, you,
do.
you do like movement. Like you're dancing, you like movement. So I love it too. I dance it out in my house all the time, right? And sometimes that's our entry point. Like what feels good to you? And sometimes thinking back to when we were children is a really good clue. What did you like to do when you were a child? Did you like to chase your friends on the playground? Did you like to ride your bike? Did you like roller skating? Like hula hooping, whatever it is, like get in touch with that. Maybe it's not that activity, but get in that feeling state. Like go back and think, ooh, what felt good and yummy and free? That's a good word, free. When did I feel the most
Mm.
free, liberated? When did I feel the most like me? You know, and that's your clue. Well, go find something that feels like that. It doesn't have to be what it was when you were a child, but it should feel like that.
I love
Yeah.
this. Oh my, I don't know if you know this. I did dance when I was a kid. It's probably why I can't help myself now. I love music. I love dancing. Um,
Mhm.
Free. Oh my God. This is like, I'm over here and I know no one can see me cheering and I'm trying to stay calm so that you can all hear these amazing words, but that is so good. So training is a
Yes.
totally, I mean, it's not even a word that I would use at all. So I love this. I'm kind of picturing a progress of movement starting anywhere, something that you do enjoy, walking, dancing. I love that you brought up hula hooping. I always sucked at it. But anyway,
Yeah.
like I love that there's that going back to that place in any movement. I think you probably agree with me. All movement counts, right? You even talked earlier about tasks, like things around the house that you're doing. You're moving your body all the time. And then you kind of can progress a little bit more into some training?
Yeah. So we start with movement. We first get into feeling comfortable. It's like getting reacquainted. If you're going from zero activity to all of a sudden, I want to, train, work out, exercise, whatever, that's a lot. So just getting started in that introduction, I guess using that analogy of relationships again, it's like if you were to meet a friend for the first time or go on a date for the first time, you wouldn't jump right into like, let's be committed. It's like, let's get married or whatever. It's like, no, it's like, hey, what do you do? Like, what are your favorite hobbies? Do you want to have kids first? Like, let's get that out of the way, right? You don't jump right into the committed part. So you kind of test the waters. And so when it comes to training, yes, you're absolutely right. Now all of a sudden it's like, well, I like walking. If I like walking, I might like hiking. Oh, you know what? I would like to hike with more ease. I would like to hike and feel stronger when I'm doing it. So now it's like, well, what can I do? What kind of program can you put me on that's my why, right? My why is I want to feel good when I'm hiking. I really enjoy this. I want to enjoy it more. So now we're going to look at programming in things that's like, well, let's look at your single leg stance, right? Because that's what walking is. It's like you're standing on one foot at a time. That's balance, right? Now it's interesting to work on balance. Now it's interesting to build single leg strength. But maybe if you were going from zero to some exercise, you're like, why would I want to do split squats? That looks terrible, right? Like if there's no reason to do it. But if I tell you, it's like, well, when you're walking uphill, these are the muscles you're using. You know what could train that really well? Doing a split squat. And if split squats aren't accessible, right? And sometimes we think split squat. I don't know what people might be imagining when they think about that right now, but they might think, well, I can't go all the way to the ground. Fine, let's get you a quarter squat. Let's start there. Or okay, that's inaccessible. That's fine. Let's get you a chair. Let's get your hands on that. Let's get you some support. Let's get you feeling the movement pattern. And I think that is also my entry point into it. It's not like, let's do the textbook perfect version of this exercise that you've seen on, your social media platforms. I don't care about that. Does it help you do more of what you need to do? That's my metric. If we're achieving that, we're doing good. We're doing real good.
Oh,
so
that's so good.
And that's what training is. It's like getting you to move in these ways that helps you mimic the movements that you do in your life, real life stuff. And then we keep progressing it. But your body is what dictates how much we progress. But there's always an entry point. And that entry point is going to look different for everyone. The exercises we choose are going to look different for everyone because not everybody, like a squat is a really good example of this. If you've got really long thigh bones, right, long femurs, you're probably not going to love squatting like a traditional squat. You just won't. And so people who have these long thigh bones are going to be like, well, why can't I squat? I don't look like this person with shorter femurs. They look like they're having a blast. I'm not having a blast. And it's like, yeah, that's because of your anthropomorphics. That's because of the way your body is put together. But there's other things we can do that you probably would enjoy. Let's not waste our time on exercises we don't enjoy.
Oh my gosh, this is so good. Which leads me into, how do you work with clients? I know you live in a certain area, which is great if people live there, but if they don't, can they still connect with you?
Well, I only do online training. So all
I
my
love
sessions
it.
are virtual. And I find people too who have been, I don't like gyms. I used to work in a gym. I used to train in a gym. I don't personally like them for a couple of reasons. I like to hog up all the equipment myself. So I have all the equipment that I have. I don't like waiting on equipment. I don't. I'm impatient. I want to do my workout the way I want in the sets and the sequence that I want to do it. I also don't feel like striking up conversations with people in the gym. Right. So I just don't, and I don't like busy. I'm an introverted person. I'm outgoing, but I'm introverted. I like quiet time. I like time by myself. I want to play the music I want to play. Right. And also, side bonus, when I work out at home in between sets, when I'm resting, I can do a little sweeping. I can take care of some chores while I'm at home.
This is fantastic. I can do some sweeping. That is not something I would have thought of. And I just love that so much.
Yeah. Sometimes your floors are dusty and you got a 2-minute rest. Well, that's less dust. That's 2 minutes less force of the dust. And, and we talked about dancing, and sometimes in between I can just dance around. maybe I would do that in a public gym, maybe not. I don't know. But I like to kind of dance it out in between sets. Good active rest.
I do the same thing at the
Yeah.
gym. I'm that girl. I am so that girl. Don't worry. I'm covering all the bases on that for
Yes.
you. So if someone works with you virtually then, because I've never had that experience, how does that logistically work? So how are you able to maybe somebody who is really just starting out with new movements or wanting to try something new, stretch themselves a little bit, learn more. How do you go about doing that?
Well, first we start with a pretty thorough intake and I do a movement assessment. And the movement assessment is like more like a screen. And I just kind of put people in different positions, kind of see like, okay, where are we really strong? Where are there opportunities for improvement based on what goals they have? And then based on that, then I create a program. And so one of the things, and the whole online thing started, during the pandemic when we couldn't meet in gyms. Gyms were the first places like, you are done, shut it down. So I had to take my clients online and be like, we're going to try this. And what it's done for me as a coach is it's really helped me cue people without putting my hands on them, right? I can't be on them physically. And honestly, there are lots of people out there who like, I don't want to be touched. Please don't touch me.
I'm one of those people.
Okay. So this is empowering because I get to learn I've gotten really good at coaching people without touching them, giving them their own cues. We use a lot of household products. We use broomsticks, we use soup cans, we use books.
I love this.
Yeah. And so what we do then is I teach people, okay, here's how I want you to learn how to feel this. And the good news is they can use their own hands, they can use sticks, they can use whatever to feel where I want them to have their body in space without anybody having to touch them. And so I have to get very creative, like, okay, does this work for you? And if they're like, no, I'm still not quite getting it. So, okay, let me think of another way, another way, another way. And then pretty soon it's like, okay, I get it now. All right, let me do this. And then they get to own that movement for themselves because they had gone through the experience of, I had to work it out my own way. And here we are. And now I get it. Now I can do this.
Layers of empowerment, layers
Yes.
of them. I mean, talk about not just having enjoyable movement, but movement you own. You feel so much more connected to that movement, and no one's touching me. Like I have to tell you, for me, that this is like an added bonus that I get all the things I want. And you also are not touching me. And I don't feel bad about myself. I feel better about myself. And I think that we're going to see more and more of this. I think there's a lot of online virtual trainers, but what we need is more of this empowering, inclusive, really seeing people as their whole self, viewing movement as enjoyable. Like, this is what we need more of. This right here. I know there's a lot of listeners who may have stopped working out, stopped really moving because they've had those bad experiences, because they actually don't have someone like you in their life. So how can listeners connect with you? What's the best way they can touch base, learn more? I know you're on social media and you're always giving these amazing tips. So if you would definitely share that as part of it.
Of course, yes. So on Instagram, that's the only social platform I'm on right now. Is my handle is at Phases Fitness. So that's PHASES Fitness. I had to think about fitness, FITNESS. So Phases Fitness, all one word. And and if you want to hear more about more in-depth stuff, I have a newsletter. It's called Sunday Coffee. And you can find that on my website. There's a little sign up there. There's probably also a pop-up that comes up on my website, which is phases, and this is a dash fitness. So it's phases-fitness.com. And so that's my email, or that's where you can subscribe to my email list.
Absolutely. And I'll make sure that everything is linked. Like, I love this about podcasts is while you're listening, you can even scroll into the show notes and click on Instagram. It'll pop you over there. You don't have to stop listening. And you can go and sign up for Sunday Coffee newsletter. I told Emiko, like, Sunday coffee, sitting and hanging out together would just be ideal for me. So I love that you have something to connect in that way. And it feels like a conversation that we're having together like today. And It speaks to my heart. Is there anything that before we're done here that you want to share, anything we didn't cover?
No, I think I just, especially if I'm talking to people who are just, they're not sure if they want to get back into fitness or what it is, I just want to really emphasize is find that why, really drill down. And if that seems inaccessible, just get to that feeling state. Like, how do I want to feel? What is it that I want to feel? And even just thinking about some of the things that you do in your daily life or things that you might want to do, but you just feel like I can't do that until. Check in and see if it's just deconditioning, you know? It just might just be some deconditioning. And the body is amazing at getting reconditioned or conditioned if we just train it and finding that accessible point of entry. Well, what can I do? What can I start to do? And start with movement. Absolutely 100%.
That's so good. That's so good. I have a feeling when we're done here today, we're both going to stop this, turn on some music, and dance it out because I think that right there is the most joyful thing I can think of to do to end this. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on the podcast. I know this is going to speak directly to the hearts of the listeners. I'm so glad you had time to come on and share this.
Oh, thank you for having me. It was a blast.
Wasn't that conversation so much fun? I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I hope that you've taken a moment, go follow Emiko on Instagram, check her out. And if you're looking for that virtual personal trainer to help you from that weight neutral approach, then she might be your gal. All right. I don't want to leave this episode without a quick reminder that my VIP waitlist for January's group coaching is open. So head into the show notes, click VIP waitlist, join the waitlist now. There's some amazing things coming, but you need to be on the wait list. Go ahead and join now. And you know what? If you have questions about group coaching, you have questions about intuitive eating, you absolutely can hit me up in my email, jennifer@healthcoachforlife.com, and I'll answer them there. All right. See you right back here next week.